Could you hear me
Where?
okay?
What's that?
Could you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Great. I love people that prioritize coffee.
That is essential. This is an early morning for me, so.
Great. Well, cheers from afar.
Yeah. Cheers to. Where are you based? Are you in Boston or Denver?
I'm in neither.
Oh.
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Oh, you're in Washington. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
How about you?
I'm in San Francisco.
In someone's kitchen.
Well, technically I'm at home. I'm in Emeryville. I'm in the East Bay. This is where I live now.
Great. Well, let's get started. I know we're short on time.
Yeah.
So, first off, congrats on your recent career change.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Sure. You've, for our viewers, we're recording this now for Grasstops, publication of Grassroots Campaigns, and later on, others will be viewing this and they won't know what happened to you. So, so you were at Planned Parenthood for quite some time, and you're going to be moving on to NextGen America, which we'll get to in a minute. But let me take you back for a minute, back in your life before Planned Parenthood. Where were you? What's your story? How did your life prior to you being at Planned Parenthood shape you for Planned Parenthood?
Yeah. Well, I got my start in organizing quite some time ago, back in about 2010. I was a young, fresh college student seeking out opportunities to get involved. I had always sort of just been interested in politics. I grew up in a single mother household, and so my mom was just this powerful woman figure who was the all around badass that I just always looked up to. And I think that informed my experience wanting to ensure that other young people had avenues to make a difference in their lives. And I was exposed to a lot of injustices just simply because I grew up in a low income single mother household where we didn't always have access to resources. My mom didn't always had to work multiple jobs in order to put food on the table. And so for me, it was always just a part of who I was to give back and to work to ensure that people always had the access to the resources and to leading the best lives that they could. And so when I got to college, it felt like a fate of some kind that I would fall into the hands of Planned Parenthood. I was seeking out opportunities to engage my community. And in 2010, it was obviously a midterm year. And so Planned Parenthood had just recently, I think it was probably earlier on in their time, where they were engaging in politics in a different way. And so I stumbled upon them and really got my start organizing with Planned Parenthood at that time. And I often say within the Planned Parenthood world, that's where I grew up. That's where I went from baby organizer to a senior organizer pretty quickly, because that's where I learned my skill set of what it took to transform a community, not only around elections and voting access, but around issues and matters that people deeply cared about. So before Planned Parenthood, I don't think there is a before. I feel like before I was this semi-politicized young person who cared about some shit, and then Planned Parenthood came in and sort of helped give me a framework and an organizing methodology to fight for the change that I wanted to see. So I've been with Planned Parenthood now since about 2010 in a lot of different capacities, and I still sort of see myself as part of the Planned Parenthood family, even with my change, because our movement is just so strong, and reproductive health and rights and justice is really where the issue framework that brought me into organizing and made me want to keep fighting for social justice.
Do you remember what inspired you to pursue Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, actually, I mentioned that my mother was about a single mom raising 4 kids in Syracuse, New York. But my mom was actually not just a single mother, but a young mom. She had me when she was in college. And when she was deciding about her pregnancy and how she wanted to carry her pregnancy to term, she actually went to Planned Parenthood and got options counseling. And upon that options counseling was signed up for Medicaid, excuse me. And I often say that experience is really where my history with Planned Parenthood starts in many ways, because I don't think that without that, I think my experience would have been much different.
How old were you then?
What's that?
How old were you then?
When my mom went to Planned Parenthood, I was not even born.
It was for you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought it was for one of your brothers or sisters.
No, it was for me, and I think that so it's like I think that for me, my mom was always a very open parent. I often say that it was like a free to be you and me household, and I think that my mom really wanted to instill that we have choices in life, and there are always people down the road who will help guide you and teach you and support you in the choices that you make, but that you should always have access to those choices. And so for me, Planned Parenthood was a place where I saw it as a resource for my community, a resource for myself, for my friends, for my family. And when it became time for me to move on in life and find my own pathway, I felt like Planned Parenthood was a space where I could really, where I could make a difference in people's lives, and I could fight to make a change for young people like myself, or provide resources to young people like my mother, who, quite frankly, didn't have access to sex education. You know, she had an unintended pregnancy because she didn't always have access to the sexual health information that she needed. And I'm so glad that my mother had the opportunity to have an options counseling, and she chose to carry her pregnancy to term, and she was deciding the pathway to the family that she wanted on her terms. But I also think that there has to be opportunities for more young people to increase access to resources, and which is why, for me, when I chose Planned Parenthood to get involved and when I began organizing, I rooted my experience in youth work specifically because I saw the gaps in our access to sexual health education and information in our country.
Tell me a little bit more about your mom. And I imagine you and your mom and the choices that she made for herself in her own life and her pregnancy resonated with you going on and working at Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about conversations you might have had around that.
Oh, for sure. I think my mom has always been incredibly proud. She is, like, no matter where she goes, she's a public school teacher now. And when people ask her, what does your daughter do? She says she works for Planned Parenthood. Like, my mother is not shy about who I work for or what I do. When I was working with Planned Parenthood in college and I was volunteering, my mom would come to the rallies that I would organize. She would show up for volunteer shifts. I think my mom always, in her heart of hearts, was a supporter. She's not dead. She's alive. Good Lord. I don't know why I'm saying that. She is a supporter of Planned Parenthood. And I think that that is a unique experience that not everyone has from their parental support systems for folks in their lives. So my mom has always been really supportive. And I think our conversations about Planned Parenthood have always been really rich. I think that, like I was saying, I think it has always rooted around people should always have access to choices. My mother, wasn't, to my understanding, was not a crusader for people to always choose adoption, or wasn't always a crusader for people to choose abortion. She was really And in the conversations we had, we were both mutually discussing choice and the ability to make those choices and the access to those choices. When we talked a lot about, and we still talk about, access to reproductive health care, it's more about whether or not you even have a clinic to go to, or you have the transportation to get to a sexual health clinic to get the information you need. My mom grew up in a small town in central New York, central upstate New York, in the boonies, and they didn't have, their closest hospital was like 45 minutes away. So their access to medical and health information was so far and so limited that I think my mother, when she went to college and got pregnant and was living in Syracuse, New York, that was like a transformative moment for her to be able to go to a clinic that was just down the road from her college, which is can be a unique experience now for people in our country. So I think my mother and I were always really discussing what the access point was for people, and how we could increase access, how we could talk to people in our communities to make sure that they understood that this shouldn't be about you. These choices aren't about you. They are about the individuals who are making decisions about their bodies. And at the end of the day, that is what is most important. And that's what we have to protect.
Was there ever one thing that your mother might have said to you about your work at Planned Parenthood that stuck in your head and you always repeated over or played like a tape as you were doing your work?
I think that it was just always that she's always so proud of me, and that she just knew that this was my calling, that working at Planned Parenthood was a dream of mine, and always supported me in that. I think that that's what consistently always helped keep me going.
How do you know she's proud of you?
Because she told me. My mother is not shy about her pride in her daughters or her sons. She constantly is telling us how proud she is of me. I often say that my love language is affirmations, because I grew up in a household that was very positive and very loving in that way, where we didn't always have a lot, but we always knew we had each other. And my mother was very proud to tell her children how much she cared for them, and that no matter what, she would have their back. So, upon getting my job, she posted a beautiful, back in 2014 when I officially was hired at the national office, she posted this beautiful poem or something of me getting this job at Planned Parenthood, which was really sweet. And so my mother has always just been my biggest cheerleader, and I've always known it.
Great. So tell me about Erin Carhart on the first day of work at Planned Parenthood and Erin Carhart on the last day.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I have had a lot of first days at Planned Parenthood. I started back in May of 2014 at the national office, officially as a full-time staff person. And I was certainly at that time, I think much more green. I was ready to take on anything. I was open to just being a sponge and learning. Not that I think that that's changed much, but at the time I was really, I was just really eager to learn how we could mobilize young people and train young people to be this next army of reproductive rights activists. And I think at that time, it was, I perhaps might say, I don't know if this is depressing, but at that time, I think I was really hopeful. I was really hopeful for what the future could hold. I was really hopeful for what I believed that young people could do to impact the 2016 elections. And I remember I had this moment in 2014 where my phrase was 2016 and beyond. And then 2016 came and I was oh my God, it's 2016. I need a new phrase. How are we going to talk about this now? And I think for me, I was just this really incredibly hopeful person, and hopeful organizer who was ready to bring young people into this movement and into the fold to train them up in the skills that they needed. And then I think from then to my last day, I think I was a much more seasoned and invigorated organizer to a degree that I feel like I had seen some things at that point, right? I sort of became this organizer that had experienced the trauma of the 2016 elections. I had, I've also experienced the trauma of the 2014 midterms with Planned Parenthood at that point. And in between all of that, the state legislature fights that we had experienced and the slashing of access to reproductive health care, I think, came to this culminating moment on my last day at Planned Parenthood where I could only feel anything but grateful and also really proud of all the work that I had done with the community at that point. And then I think for me, my hopefulness didn't really disappear, but it's this sense of re-energizing and just coming to a moment where I am ready more than ever to back young people in this fight for social change. And I think part of the reason in my career change and my shift in the movement to working with NextGen America is a part of that, where I am excited for this next chapter where I get to focus my efforts entirely on voting, voter engagement work, where in a way in Planned Parenthood, I was dividing a lot of my time. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity to dive into a specific area that I think young people in particular have the ability to make a difference in, which is really exciting. So for me, I think my time at Planned Parenthood, I've been through the 7 stages of grief. I've been through all the things where I'm going through my emotions. But I think my last day at Planned Parenthood was really just so grateful and so proud of all the work and just ready for this next chapter of my professional career and this next chapter of how I get to engage with young people.
So you spent your time at Planned Parenthood working on campuses, working with young people, being the youth organizer, and then you finished this culmination. The culmination of your work was this summer, the Planned Parenthood Summer of Defiance.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard the 2016 election was a moment to, it's like a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And this summer was our, the gun went off in terms of resistance. Move On has the Summer of Resistance. The Democratic National Committee, DNC, has the Summer of Resistance. Human Rights Campaign has the Summer of Action. Bernie Sanders, Our Revolution, has the Summer of Progress. And Planned Parenthood have the Summer of Defiance. So the summer was important.
Yeah.
So what's the story of the Summer of Defiance? How did it come about, and what did it end up becoming?
Yeah, I think for us for a long time we had talked about how can we build the leadership of young people over the course of an immersion training program. Planned Parenthood is not unfamiliar with training up young people and organizing. For the last 5 or so years, we had been organizing and training young people in our summer trainings program every other year, and then also have always provided leadership development opportunities through our various youth councils. But each of those experiences were so unique to a particular skill set, and they were over a longer period of time. I mean, either it was a year-long training experience, or it was a day and a half to 2-day training that was really succinct and just for a particular community of activists in a particular region. So when we sat down I feel like when we sat down in November, we were like, what the fuck? And then when we sat down again in January, where we had time to wrap our heads around the Women's March, we had time to think about what the hell we're going to do and how we're going to mobilize people. we had revisited these ideas around how we had wanted in the past to build out a fellowship program that was truly meaningful for young people, but that also could support some of the work happening in states that needed it most over a period of time. And it felt like that this summer, given the Summer of Resistance, given Move On and the DNC and, Bernie and everybody else participating in some kind of summer program, that it just made sense for us to also offer an experience for young people that was rich in fighting for reproductive health care access. And so when we started devising our plans and thinking through what this program could look like and how we could engage with young people in an immersion program, we were really excited to work with Change Corps and Grassroots Campaigns or Grassroots Voter Outreach to figure out how we could best train our young people up for not only for success over the summer and supporting our state work, but also for building out opportunities for them to see pathways towards careers in organizing, and really looking to Planned Parenthood, Change Corps, and GVO as a way to look to these institutions and organizations as pathways to find that opportunity, and to always come back to organizing, whether it was now or in 10 years after they've built out their career or done something else or continued on with their education, but that they always saw a political activist path in their life through our organizations. So our hope was really that folks had that experience over the summer and were able to become politicized in that way, and choose opportunities with us, and choosing reproductive health as one of their major issue areas that they're concerned about.
Well, if that was the goal, I could attest to you. I've interviewed for Grasstops 6 fellows, Planned Parenthood fellows that were fellows and basically on the ground organizers this summer.
Yeah.
3 from Texas, 1 from Iowa, 1 from Montana. And what was interesting was just yesterday I interviewed Courtney Svetgari. I don't know where you were, Erin, during the Summer of Defiance, but Courtney was based in Texas.
Okay.
And her father was a refugee. And she came from a similar background as you, where her family urged her to be active in society and to engage in advocacy and get out there and fight for what you believe in. But then you had Madison Yulden from Billings, Montana, who you might know.
I do, yeah.
And she, like your mother, was a single mother, but she was never involved in politics before this election. And she just looked herself in the mirror after getting that punch in the gut, or as you say, the what the fuck moment, and said, I got to do something. So if the goal was to arm young organizers, it's happening. And it's happening with people like Madison Yulden, because she's going on and she's continuing her work in organizing in other places with Planned Parenthood principles, women's rights, women's reproductive rights in her heart. And it's happening with Carla Cruz and Tess Ortega and Courtney and in Texas, and also Mila Kaut in Iowa. So what could you say about the fellows?
Oh gosh, they are. I spent the majority of my summer traveling to different states to meet with the fellows. I was in Alaska and Montana, and in Washington, and I was impressed, beyond impressed, with the fellows there. I had the opportunity to meet Madison, and when I met with Madison, I was just her story and my story were similar in many ways, but also just so impressed with her proactive will to find and seek out opportunities to stay engaged, and her passion for this work. Just in the short 4 weeks of the program, I was just so impressed with not what the fellows' resumes stated, or what their track record said about them at school or in their careers, but who they were and what they brought to the table and what their aspirations were. I met with fellows in Detroit when we were doing our training from Kentucky, Indiana, and Michigan. And when I was meeting with them, hearing about their hopes and dreams to become a gynecologist, or their hopes and dreams to be a lifelong organizer, or not even knowing what they want to do, but they know that right now and in this moment, Planned Parenthood and participating in the Summer of Defiance program was the most important thing for them. And I think for me, it was just so refreshing and invigorating to be able to be among young people who are just so smart and so fresh and so excited to do this work. Because I think as sometimes as jaded old organizers, it can be a really grounding moment to speak with new people who are excited about what we're doing and are ready to take action, because at some point we have to tag folks in and we have to tag ourselves out. And so for me, this summer was a lot about learning about our fellows and about what their hopes and dreams were and how we could support them as an organization, but also me as Erin Carhart to help them find their next path. So they were just, I was blown away by the fellows. They were really incredible.
Well, finding a path for me, look, we all need to put food on the table, and getting a job gets you paid. But what I've learned going through these interviews of the Planned Parenthood Summer of Defiance fellows is not only are they being recruited, just yesterday Courtney Svetgari mentioned that Travis County Democrats are recruiting her to be a precinct captain. So the fellows are being recruited. They're getting jobs. They're probably going to get paid. But this experience seems to have done more in terms of giving them a greater sense of purpose. And putting them on a path, as you say, that excites them about what they've done and what they could do. And that must make you feel, I imagine that makes you feel proud.
Oh, God. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you feel about all that you've achieved? You know, you've come from day one at Planned Parenthood to your last day, and this was the culminating initiative. How do you feel?
I feel so proud. I feel like in my time at Planned Parenthood, I've trained probably close to 5,000 activists in some capacity or another, and that is like knowing that my impact is beyond just the one training that I went to and provided a story of self training, or I taught a team of organizers how to delegate tasks and build out their snowflake team. Goes beyond just those moments, that I know that even beyond those trainings, that these young people are using these skills and teaching their friends and their brothers and sisters and their community members about how they can organize to make a change. So for me, I'm excited to see the ripple effect of all of the work that I've done, but that my team has done at Planned Parenthood. Because honestly, my success there could not have been what it was if it wasn't for the incredible team that I had to do it with me. So it's been it was a really amazing experience to work there.
So it's been very heartening to learn about all the next steps of many of the fellows. Mm-hmm. And you have some big next steps coming up.
Yeah, I do. So I've actually started those next steps already, which is wild. I have accepted and have moved on to a role with NextGen America, which is a policy and advocacy organization based in San Francisco that previously focused primarily on climate change, but we've expanded our issue platform and are working on immigration and healthcare and economic prosperity for people across the country. And my role is the national organizing director, specifically working with our 7 or 8 target states. I can never remember. Goodness, I feel like they always change. But we have select target states that I'm working to build out field teams in to change, to increase access to voting and to turn out voters in 2017 and 2018. So and not just any old voter, we were focusing on 18 to 34, 40-year-olds, so a younger demographic of folks to ensure that we're increasing a youth turnout in both elections coming up in the next 2 years, which is really exciting. And it's an area that I've always, at Planned Parenthood, had small opportunities to dabble in, but and prior to Planned Parenthood, I've always been passionate about youth voting and access to voting on campus and off campus and in youth communities. And so for me, I'm really excited to be able to focus on that work 100% of the time, to make sure that our field organizing program across the country is really strong and solid in terms of engaging young people in democracy.
Great. Is there anyone that you'll miss dearly at Planned Parenthood or from the Summer of Defiance?
I will miss so many people at Planned Parenthood, but I know they're not far. I will 110% miss my team. They are the most fiery, badass, sassy young people that you'll ever meet. Kate Cartagena and Tally Ramo and Monica Masamba are they are just this ball of amazingness that are doing amazing things, and they're going to go far. I know it's, but then of course I'm just going to miss everybody else who I always worked with. Mallory Long, Kersha Dybel, Kelly Robinson, Katie Waters, all the folks who I think have seen me in my many stages of me as an organizer, and who I would call in the drop of a hat for anything, and I know they'd be there. So,
well, I'm sure they miss you too. Erin, you sound like a badass yourself, and I think the world needs more organizers like you. And I thank you for what you're going to go on to do at NextGen America for our country.
Oh yeah,
especially as the 2018-2020 years approach. So
we need it.
Yep. So thank you for everything. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's very early there in San Francisco. Where were you based before San Francisco?
Washington, D.C.
Ah, well, welcome to the West Coast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited. My wife and I have been wanting to make this move for a while now. So
congrats to both of you.
Thank
cheers.
you.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Well, thank you, John.
Thanks again.
Appreciate this interview, and look forward to hearing the final product.
Great. We'll be publishing soon, and I'll have links to all the fellows, and it'll be a nice memento of the experience in the summer.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Hopefully fuel and fire for the road ahead.
Sounds awesome.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye.